Okay, well, I think we'll get started if you're ready, Justin.
Oh yes, I'm ready. Yes. Let's go.
So there we go. So introducing. Oh, sorry, get my mouse working. Introducing Justin Hunt, here to give us a presentation on recording audio and video with PoodLL. Justin, as we've already established for those of us who were here early, is living in Nagasaki, Japan, but originally from New Zealand, and has been working with PoodLL. And I know that Julian, the Moodle man over here, has great admiration for his work, so we're very interested to hear what he has to say. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you very much, Meg. Well, thanks for coming along. I know it's pretty late for certainly the people in Japan and even the people in Australia. It's getting on. So thanks for coming and watching the presentation. Yes, my name's Justin Hunt, and I'm not from Japan. I'm from New Zealand. So you don't have to tell me my English is good. Should be good. And I'm going to talk about PoodLL today. I'm mainly going to talk about audio and video recording. PoodLL actually does quite a bit more than just audio and video recording, but audio and video recording are the things that people seem to like the most. And so I guess basically these days I've concentrated my efforts on that because that seems to be what's getting the most reception. And with PoodLL, there's actually two of us making it. There's me and there's another guy called Tom Rawson. He's also in Nagasaki, but he's not here today. And I do most of the coding really. Tom does a little bit of coding, but not so much. And he's more of an infrastructure guy. So he does he handles things like the demo site and some of the Linux admin because there's quite a bit of back end going on for the some parts of it. And recording, audio and video recording, it's really interesting because a lot of people have said since they came out with PoodLL 2, they've said that they didn't want to go to Moodle 2 because they didn't have a good recording solution. And that was partly because I think a lot of people in Moodle 1.9 relied on Nanogong for audio recording. Actually, Nanogong's just come back this week, isn't it? But if you've been following things, you'll see that Nanogong, which didn't work for a long time, is now back working with the latest version of Moodle. But so I think a lot of people were quite happy to see PoodLL 2 and now Nanogong come along because they could move to Moodle 2. So that was very interesting for me. I wasn't aware that that was going to go that way. Now, I should have prepared a pod here. I meant to do that, but I got chatting to everybody. I'm just going to create a poll while we're talking here. Well, there's only 5 of us. Actually, I won't do that. I'll just ask you the questions. I think. Get rid of this. How do I get rid of this poll? So the people who are here, who would consider themselves a teacher and who would consider themselves more of an admin or a developer? Right. Okay. Well, that's a fair mix. Okay. I'm going to go through then. I'll talk a little bit about how we use PoodLL. If people want to see how to install PoodLL, perhaps at the end of the session I can show you that. It's become a lot easier, so I think it's probably not anywhere near as difficult as it used to be. So no more difficult than most mods, but then again, it may be worth going through that. So we'll just see how much time we have at the end of the session, and then we'll perhaps do that. Okay, let me just move my slide. Here we go here. So what is PoodLL? Well, PoodLL, it's a set of modules for language learning classes in Moodle. And some of those modules are audio recording, video recording. There's a whiteboard, flashcards, timers, audio video players, stopwatch. There's a number of other things, but that gives you an idea of how it works. A lot of it is based in Flash, but some of it is also will also work in HTML5. So the things that work in HTML5 are the things that basically are not recorders. So the whiteboard or the flashcards, the stopwatch, they will work in HTML5 too. And I'm going to try and drop out of this particular screen here, and I'm going to, where am I going to here? I'm going to try and share my desktop. Hang on, where did that go? I should know how to do that. I've practiced that. How do I prepare my desktop? Meg, how do I share my desktop? I thought I'd done this. There you go, you there? Oh, Meg. Go share. I perhaps have to stop sharing here and then say I see. Okay. Yes, I do have plans for recording without Flash with iPhones and Android devices. It's kind of sketch on a napkin kind of stage at the moment, but I've kind of put the infrastructure in some of the new things, which I'll talk about, so that the server side of things doesn't have to change too much. We just have to write clients for mobile devices that can be triggered from Moodle web pages. All right, let me just see if I can drop into my here and start sharing my screen. Yeah, that's what we want to do, share my screen. Let me share my desktop. Okay. All right, so here we have our demo course. I'm going to actually show you now how, great, thanks Don. I think I'm going to show you now how I would record something into a course using a repository. So I just want to give you a bit of an introduction to PoodLL just so you can see it working, and that might give you a bit of context later when I talk about some of the other stuff. So I'm already logged in. This is the PoodLL demo site. It's demo.poodl.com. And that's open access. Anybody can go there. You can see the usernames and password for the admin is here, and the username and passwords for the users, student logins, are here. And this is reset every night at midnight Japan time, so you can actually get in there and just go wild, do whatever you like. Now I'm already logged in, so I've just gone straight through, and we'll turn editing on. A bit bigger for you. And let's add a page. Title. And a description. And here in our page content, we'll open the file chooser. And here we get our picker. So this is the audio recording repository. So we can record straight into here. Because we already have our Adobe connectors using my microphone, I'm not going to try that. I'll try first with the video recording module. All right, so there's me, and might go a little bit weird because of the Adobe Connect thing, but it's me. Let's just take a little video. All right, we're just moving around, and we'll stop that. Now at this point, the video has been saved on our cloud server. It's in Tokyo, and at this point, the video is converted to an MP4 video, and when we press this button here, that will actually be copied over into Moodle. You can hear me there. Insert, and here it is here. If we save and display, we get, this is a splash screen which we use to get fast load times. And if we click the splash screen, our MP4 video will display. Okay, I hope could everybody see that okay? I hope you could. Can that be made portable? Great, thanks, Julian. When you say portable, Stephen, how do you mean? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, if you want to use like a, thanks you guys for saying you could see that. If you want to use it, say using a mobile device, perhaps you want to go to park, you want to send your students off to parks with their iPhones, and then record videos, and then they can come back and upload them to the repository. That's something we want to do is to add support for mobile devices. If you want to do something that portable, like sending your students out with cameras or phones to remote locations and coming back, you probably just use the unupload repository, I think. But yeah, that's actually something I'm working on. So, but it's just not ready yet. But I think I get that asked quite a lot. All right, right. So that's PoodLL. All right, that's basically what we're talking about. Let's go to our next screen. Right now, PoodLL for Moodle 1.9 was a lot more than it is now. If you look at PoodLL for Moodle 2, it's really been trimmed back. Some of the things that we lost our talkback widget, which was basically was more like a language lab facility. Oh, well, let me cover that. Here we've got the open source language laboratory. Now that's what PoodLL was originally aimed to be, and I'm not quite sure if I should keep that tagline or if I should just drop it and make it a bit closer to what PoodLL is now, which is something like a multimedia add-ons for PoodLL. But initially I wanted to make a replacement for the standard language laboratories. And so the talkback widget was one of those standard language laboratory features where you could record into a conversation or a video, perhaps say the Titanic, and you take the role of one of the characters in the Titanic, or a Harry Potter video, you'd have one of the characters, Ron, the voice would be blanked out and you'd record over that. And that was a talkback widget. And pair work, so we had pair work, we could have pairs of students talking across the room using video or audio, and we have shared whiteboards. And that's another thing that hasn't made it to PoodLL 2 yet. And we had a journal activity and some screencasting and a few other things. So those things didn't make it to Moodle 2 or PoodLL 2, and because of the way things have gone, everyone's very interested in the recording. I may not bring those across, although in particular the pair work worked very well, and it was quite a useful mod. So I may bring that out as something completely different. We'll just see how time goes on with that. Did anybody here try installing PoodLL for the old Moodle? Right. Okay. Yeah, it was so we do. Yeah, it was really a brute to install, because you needed to install a Red 5 server, and that's a Java-based server, and that was just beyond most people. It was really difficult. So I think a lot of those people who tried PoodLL then, they don't have a great impression of Moodle, I think, because they just couldn't get it to go. And I see some people didn't know about PoodLL till yesterday. All right. Also, Stephen just asked earlier on there about could you have PoodLL for audio discussions? Well, yes. I mean, with the pair work widget, in Moodle 1.9 we could have groups of 10 students or 9 students or 5 students with a video and or audio talking in a group. So it was really good, but it's probably going to be difficult for people to do. They'll run into having to install Red 5 in the same way if we bring that back. So that's why I may leave that into as a different product completely. Okay, let me move on then. So what are the components of PoodLL for Moodle? So there are 4 basic components. What you just saw when I added a video into Moodle was the PoodLL repository, and that has you can actually have an audio or video or even a snapshot. You can take a picture with a web camera and drop that into your anywhere you have a text editor or where the file picker is available to you. And then we have the PoodLL online assignment, which is a recording assignment. So you can record your voice or your video as an assignment, and that's marked in the same way a normal assignment is, which is manually. And then we have the PoodLL recording question type, and this is obviously people record or a video or an audio as response to a question, and that's also quite popular. Now all of these require the PoodLL filter. So the PoodLL filter contains all the common modules, it contains all the Flash widgets and all the HTML5 widgets. That's all in the PoodLL filter. So you can't just install the PoodLL recording question type, you need to install the filter. And these, the repository and the online assignment type and the recording question type, in terms of file size, trivial really, they're very small. But the PoodLL filter is a bit larger. So actually, on the Moodle.org plugins page, they've got a limit of 8 megabytes for your plugin, and these are probably less than 1 megabyte. But the filter, it's something like 12. So I haven't been able to upload the latest version of the filter into the Moodle.org, which means that I can't really add any of these into the latest PoodLL 2 modules into Moodle.org, which is a bit of a problem. So if you need to get PoodLL, the latest version of PoodLL, just go straight to our website, which is http://poodl.com. Let me type that in here. Also, just there on the left-hand side, you can see in the files area, I've actually uploaded the latest version of PoodLL, the entire zip file, so you could just download that and use that. All right, now let's talk a little bit more about the filter. So the filter contains a number of widgets, and amongst those are the recorders, and then there are the things that are not recorders, which are not the main discussion today, but it's worth knowing about. So let me just mouse pointer thingy. So this is a stopwatch. Okay, so in real-time classes, it's quite useful if you say, I want you to talk for 2 minutes about something, to be able to show your students a stopwatch, or if they're recording a speech or making a speech, they may want to record or check their time for the speech. That's how I use it. This is the video recorder, and this is the audio recorder. We'll see these in a minute. This is a calculator. This is a countdown timer, so you can preset a time and have that countdown. This is also an audio recorder, and that's an interesting one. It's not written by me. It's written by Paul Nichols from the University of Canterbury. We'll talk about that a bit later too. This is the snapshot recorder. So this is where you can take a photo with your webcam, and that'll drop that photo straight into anywhere that you have access to the file chooser or the file picker. It's really good for profile photos, obviously. This is a whiteboard, a little bit less useful without the shared aspect, without the paired aspects, but I still use it. The students have fun. We do Hangman, or my version of Hangman, which doesn't involve hanging people. They'll do that in pairs using this. Floyd, that's a really good question. Excellent question. Floyd just asked, can the timers terminate a recording so the student cannot go over the specified time? On their own, they cannot, but I've just actually about finished putting a customized solution to that to affect that what you've just written there actually. So the recording is timed, so they can't go over 2 minutes or 1 minute or 30 seconds, and that's as a question. So they've got a recording question which is timed. So if the guy that commissioned me to do that, if he's happy for me to release that as open source, that could be available anywhere as soon as next week. And up here, this is the PoodLL audio player, and this is a set of dice. Sometimes we use dice for just simple board games or something. And there are actually more widgets than those. Those are just some of them, but it just gives you an idea that PoodLL is a little bit bigger than just the recorders. Now, we're still talking about the filter. All of those widgets are installed via the filter. So you just type in the certain filter strings into your Moodle, into your text area, and they will be displayed when you show that page. So the filter string. Well, let me just type it in here. I should have put an example of what it looks like. That would be an example of a PoodLL filter string. That would be an example of a PoodLL filter string. So you just type that in into a text area. Anyway, you have a HTML area, and that would show a stopwatch. In the old Moodle, you could actually choose from a picker, and that would make that little string for you. We don't have that yet. But that's really useful because, for example, the PoodLL flashcards. If you use the flashcards activity, then it's just flashcards. But if you use use it as a filter, well, you can add those flashcards to a question or to an assignment or to a page, to a lesson. So you can add those flashcards anywhere. So I think filters are something which are probably a bit underutilized in Moodle. If you look at WordPress, filters are used a lot and they're used very effectively. But anyway, so when you first install PoodLL, you'll want to do some of the settings, and the settings are here. This is how you find them: site administration, plugins, filters, PoodLL filter. And this is a key setting here. This is tokyopoodle.com. That's actually the server, the Red 5 server. So you no longer need to install a Red 5 server. That's the big change in PoodLL 2. And this has opened up PoodLL to be used by a lot more people, and I think that's why it's become more popular. If you have a shared hosting account on HostMonster or Bluehost or GoDaddy or anywhere like that, you can actually now use PoodLL because you just use our shared Red 5 server in the cloud, and you don't need to install your own one. And the rest of the settings, perhaps we'll come back on those shortly. Yeah, Don, that's let me show you that. That's a good question. That pretty much brings us to the next slide, actually. It doesn't bring us to the next slide. We'll get on that in just a moment, Don. Yeah, so Don asked, how can we host the whole world? And Nadav asked me, is it free? Well, it is free, yes. Actually, I get it free too. I'm using the Amazon EC2 servers, and if you use a particular kind of instance, they give you the first year free. Isn't that terrible? So that's actually what I'm using. So after 1 year, I probably will have to pay, but you'll see in a minute why it's not quite the Herculean, CPU, requirement that you might expect. Let me just first cover these recorders because that's the next slide. This is the PoodLL recorder here. That's the main one, the video recorder. This one records using Red 5 in the cloud. You can actually host your own Red 5. I've got a screencast on the blog and some notes telling you how to set up your own Red 5 if you are really keen to do that. You can do that. And if you wanted to, I know Nadav and SS are just talking about that. If you wanted to, you could also just make a clone of my tokyo.poodle.com server and run your own one. So you wouldn't actually need to be involved with me at all. And I think probably how much it's going to cost a month. Well, I guess the jury's out on that, but I guess 50 or 60 bucks. It's pretty tricky to guess the way Amazon sets things up. You pay for CPU cycles and various things, so it's kind of weird. But it wouldn't be $500. It wouldn't be $200. It'd probably just be 50 or 60, I think. Yeah, pretty much, Don. Yeah, you just clone it and get your own one, I suppose. Yeah, good thinking. Wow, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, that'd keep it free forever. Yeah, actually, sorry, we're getting sidetracked here, but who was the guy? The guy from Moodle News. He had a good idea. He said we could probably get a sponsor. It might even be might even be Moodle HQ to cover the costs of that hosting if we had enough people on there and people were interested enough in using it. So that's an idea. Right, let me carry on here. So the PoodLL audio recorder. This is the one here. This is also using the cloud and Red 5. And these are the mainstays. These are the ones that have been around for a while, and they're the ones. That's right, Joseph. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, but Joseph. He did a good presentation yesterday. These are the video recorder and the video recorder and the audio recorder are the mainstays. And this is the new one here, the webcam snapshot recorder. I won't be covering that really too much today because calling it a recorder is a little bit of a misnomer. And this is the really interesting one here. This is the MP3 audio recorder. And this is by Paul Nichols from the University of Canterbury. And even with the cloud server and with the various things I've done for firewall traversal, people still have trouble getting Red 5 to work every now and then. And so I kind of bit the bullet really, and I contacted Paul and I said, do you think we could use your audio recorder, which he produced and uses in his own assignment? Do you think we could use that in PoodLL? And he said, well, he'd been working on an audio recording repository himself, but he'd never got it to work. He kind of left it on the side as he did something else. So I asked if I could have a look at it, and we actually managed to get it working. So there's a bit of a team effort there, and so now I included the MP3 audio recorder into PoodLL because it doesn't require a Red 5 server. It just records local, very much like Nanogong, records locally and then uploads that MP3 file straight into Moodle. That MP3 audio recorder. Oh, great! Now, so you're actually using, sorry, Nadav. Nadav says he uses the Paul Nichols repository in Moodle 2.2. Is that right? Great. Yeah. And it works really well. So so I haven't actually integrated that with the question or with the assignment, but I do intend to, and I'm looking forward to that. And some other people have said they'd like to see that too, obviously. Yes, it can, Stephen. Anywhere that you have you can use that anywhere in any HTML page of Moodle that you have a file chooser available to you, which includes forums and pages, quizzes, feedback. If they have a file chooser, yes, absolutely. Yes, well, make PoodLL a repository. Yeah, well, PoodLL is a repository. It's a number of things. One of them is a repository. So we've got these 4 recorders are available in the repository right now as repository options. I'll cover that in just a moment. So let's move to the next page, which is the one that Don was talking about. Recording in the cloud. So here's how it works. We have the student here. They record directly into the tokyo.poodl.com cloud server, and after they finish recording, almost immediately that file is copied over into Moodle, and then that video file now resides within Moodle. So once you have recorded and it's been copied over into Moodle, which is almost immediately, then there's no need to have Tokyo PoodLL anymore. So for playing back your files, that all comes directly from the Moodle server to the student when you're playing back the file. Just when you record, you use the tokyo.poodl.com, and that means that the life of a video file is a lot longer than the recording. Obviously, it sits in grading areas and assignments and in pages, and all of that really happens straight from Moodle to the student, and that's how we can host so many people, because really that not everybody is recording at the same time, and you may have a class of 40 or 50 recording at one time, but even if you had a Red 5 server in your office, the load would be the same. I think if we had say perhaps 500 or 600 people recording at one time, which hasn't happened, if we did have that, we'd probably have to consider doing something tricky like having 3 or 4 Red 5 servers and shifting the load. But at this stage, that hasn't happened. So now that's what video format do we use? Well, I'm going to get onto that too, but at the moment what we're recording about here is FLV. That's a flash video file. So for audio and video, it's recorded here as FLV, and then the FLV is copied over into Moodle. Now let me get on to the next page. This will answer that question. I won't. This will answer that question. This is something we've just put through, and this is the recording can automatically be converted to MP3 or MP4. This is so here we have our student doing the recording. It comes up to tokyopoodl.com. Here we go to our student doing the recording. It comes to tokyopoodl.com, and here we have the conversion. We actually have a conversion, another Java package installed called Zuggler, which handles the conversion. And then that MP3 or MP4 file is then copied over into Moodle. And at that point, the student and Moodle are just using MP3 and MP4. To enable that, on the PoodLL filter settings page, we have this auto convert to MP4 and auto convert to MP3 check. And if you check that, the conversion will take place. Now you may think that's the best thing to do, obviously, is just to set it automatically to convert to MP4 or to MP3. And in some ways it's true, but that conversion can take quite some time, especially for the video. The conversion to MP4, a 1 minute video, can actually take 2 minutes to convert. So the MP3 seems to go a lot faster. So I would suggest to most people that you have your students, record to FLV or even MP3, and just for yourself, when you're making course materials, you should convert to MP4. That helps me too, because then I don't have all these my server dying from the load. I want to just jump back a slide because I skipped that there to answer the question. But PoodLL and school networks. Now this is one of the things about Red 5 that causes a lot of difficulty is that it listens by default on port 1935. Now, if when I say port 1935 or port 80, if that's gibberish to you, can you just type in there, I don't understand that, and I'll cover it. But if you understand what that means, that's fine. Okay, I think looks like people are okay with the port discussion. Good. All right. Yeah. So yeah, port 80 is the port that most web servers listen on, and port 1935 is what Red 5 and FMS server and Wowser, the other kind of flash recording servers, that's what they listen to by default. So over here by default we have port 1935 as the PoodLL server default. The great thing about port 1935, it's very reliable. It works well, and recordings are not truncated. It's reasonably quick. But the downside, of course, is that schools will often block that port. So to get around that, we're also listening on port 80, and that is never blocked by the firewall because you need to have internet access. Unfortunately, though, it can be a little bit unreliable. I find sometimes the audio or the video recordings, they get truncated, 1 or 2 seconds out from the end, or some people, just doesn't matter how hard we try, they just can't seem to connect. So yeah, Don, you've absolutely got the answer there. If you can, get your school to open up port 1935 and go with that. And just go and talk to your IT people, make a request, and if they'll say yes, that's great. And if they don't, we'll go and use port 80. It's not the end of the world. It does work. But yeah, Stephen, start learning IT language, I guess. But yeah. I actually used to work in an IT department in a university, so I kind of know the inside running, really. They will do it if your head of department asks, basically. Yeah. Basically, in the IT departments, they're just we were always putting out fires and never really could work to any clear policy because we're always just running around. And head of departments, they talk to the IT head of department, and that would basically decide the priorities. Yeah, we said no to people's requests, and not out of spite. Just there was things like this. Opening up ports was something we really never really wanted to do because of the security issues, and also we never wanted to touch labs during semesters because if anything goes wrong, the roof falls in. So that's why. But I think if you make your case clearly enough, and you're prepared to give your IT department time to do that, then they will do that for you. Okay, hopefully. And if you need any tech kind of backup there, you can always contact me, and I'm happy to talk to people about how to do that. Sure, Stephen. Yeah, just my email's there, so if you just contact me, I'll write a nice document up for you. Okay, one other thing I should mention here, although I haven't got a slide for you, is that most schools will be behind proxy servers, which means that you don't actually connect with the internet directly. You go via your proxy server, and your browser will probably have the proxy server settings all done for you. But Japanese is fine, Don. Yep. My rough Japanese. Actually, I used to work in a Japanese software company, so my IT Japanese is better than my my buying raw fish Japanese, actually. So yeah. The other thing is that your school will probably be behind a proxy server, and that means that your Moodle server has to have the proxy server settings set, and you probably have that done already. I hope you've done that. But if you haven't, then what will happen is back here, your Moodle server will go to pick up the file from tokyopoodle.com, and it'll find that it can't access it because the proxy server settings for the Moodle server haven't been set. And that will also affect you if you want to use Dropbox or any of those other kind of outside your network repository systems. So make sure you do have the proxy server settings for your Moodle server, as long as your Moodle server is in your network. Make sure you have those set. I think you probably couldn't get too far with Moodle without having that done though. Now, why would you want to have MP3 or MP4? Now, let's cover that because that's quite important. If you just use an FLV file, I'll give you a second just to look at this slide. Okay, the Moodle will choose the right player when recording via the repository file chooser. So if you notice when you add a file via the repository or the file chooser, a multimedia file, it just adds what looks like a text link to the HTML area, and later when you display that page, that link is replaced with some sort of player, and that uses in general the multimedia plugins filter. But if it's that multimedia plugins filter determines what the player is on the basis of the file extension. So the file extension, if it's FLV, which is FLV, it will give you a file that looks like this. It'll give you a big player like this because it just assumes it's a video file. Okay, so even when you record audio in using PoodLL or using Red 5, it records it as FLV, and that FLV file, when it gets added to the HTML area, it looks like this. So even though it's just an audio file, you've got this big honking player that looks like this, so it looks kind of rough. Whereas if it's an MP3 file, it's going to come out looking like this, and that's clearly an audio player, and it takes up less room on your students' screens. And if it's a video file with an MP4 extension, then you'll get your regular video player. So in terms of video, the regular video player is fine, but just in terms of audio, you really like it to look like this and not like this. Okay, so those are that's one reason why you might want to use MP3 at least rather than FLV for audio files. There's another big reason coming up, but let's just cover the small reason here. The MP3 and MP4 will play back on mobile devices. So if you've got an iPod or tablets, or you're thinking ahead, you'd like to have your content available on those devices in the future, or if you're already using them, MP3 and MP4 will play back, but FLV will not. So those are some good reasons why you might want to use MP3 or MP4 when recording. Now let's talk about that standalone MP3 recorder, because it's really been I'm really happy to have that on board, because it gives me an option to suggest to people who have trouble with the Red 5 or the tokyo.poodle.com server. And although PoodLL does video very well, and that's probably the thing that does that really nothing else does in Moodle to that extent, there are other MP3 or there are other audio recording solutions, in particular Nanogong, and people often will compare PoodLL to Nanogong, and they'll say, "Wow, heck, why do we have to have this this Red 5 server and the ports and the firewalls?" That's a fair question from a user point of view. So now we have this MP3 recorder, which works very nicely. Records directly to MP3, and it's a repository only at this stage. So we don't have an assignment or a question type for this recorder, but we're definitely going to integrate those in the near future. What made the Amazon cloud possible? Did it just open? Well, I think in actual fact, I think the new Moodle file repository system really opened that up, because it probably would have been possible to do what we do now, which is copy the recorded file over into Moodle in the past, but I think the new file repository system that the Moodle is using now, it's really made that a lot easier, and it's a lot tighter. So that's one thing. And also, I guess it's just a progression, really. I think we started out like a lot of people do with requiring a Red 5 server, and we realized that, heck, this is really stopping a lot of people using it. And we looked around for a way that we could help people by hosting a Red 5 server. Yeah, a lot of people diss the new Moodle 2 file system, but it's a big way. It's a big step forward. I think it's still a bit clunky, and it takes a lot of clicks to get something done. From a developer point of view, it can be a bit of a headache too. But I think once some of that stuff's ironed out, there'll be no looking back. Yeah, yeah. Okay, and when you when when you're using PoodLL and you're using the audio, you'll find that sometimes the default settings or the settings that you see on the demo site, they don't actually work so good for you. You get rough audio, or more likely you get rough video, and so you can actually change the settings to make the audio sound better, or the video look better, or be more streamlined for your bandwidth. And there's two ways to do it. On the left-hand side, you can see the PoodLL filter settings page, and that's here. So on the PoodLL filter settings page, you can actually change the preferred device name, because some machines, particularly in a language lab, may have more than one microphone. You can change the mic rate, which is the quality of the audio. You can change the silence level. Now that's a great one to change, because you'll often find people who have problems with their recording, like that it cuts in, it cuts out, it cuts in, it cuts out. That's because the silence level is set high, and it's deeming quiet sounds as silence and not recording them at all. So that's a good one to check if you have difficulties. Mic gain, that's your amplification. Mic echo, that is echo reduction. That's by default, yes. And loopback, that's being able to hear what's said back. It's the other way around, isn't it? Where you can hear what's said in your speakers. These two are perhaps less likely to cause you any problems, but these ones here you might want to look at from time to time. And if you set these settings in your PoodLL filter settings page, they will be applied over to each audio recorder when it loads. So if you're in a lab situation, that's great, because that means you can have one default setting for the whole lab, or for the whole school, really. But if you're in a situation where your students access from home, then maybe it's not so good, because every student has a different mic. So in that situation, they'll actually have to click on the settings button on the audio recorder, and that will then show this little settings widget here. Don just says there, your audio now is great. Is that because of your settings at your computer? It's probably not. No, I've got this Blue Yeti microphone that I bought, online from a store in America, because I wanted to do some podcasting, and this was a recommended microphone. And so yeah, it's a good microphone. I think it might actually pick up a little bit too much of my my clucking and my. But yeah, Blue Yeti, yeah, it's a really good microphone. The other one they recommend is called a Blue Snowball. I'll just type that in here. Yeah, I blew a bit much on it. Yeah, I got a bit excited. But I think in terms of when you're producing content, it's really nice to have good webcams or good video cameras and microphones. For your students, it's not perhaps so critical, but when you're producing content, I think it's quite good to have one. Snowball. Yeah. All right, let's have a look at calibration for video. So this is the same deal. We have a filter settings page here, and then on the widget we also have a settings tab. And the settings that you can see for the web camera, again, you have a choice of web camera, so you can declare a web camera here, and that will be the default camera that's used when the recorder displays. You can also set the capture width and the capture height. That's probably a useful thing to do. So at the moment it's set pretty small. The default is 320 by 240. That's great for bandwidth, because you may have 40 or 50 students recording at the same time. But for yourself, you might want to actually, before you record, just click on the settings tab and set a larger size, because you probably want better quality for your videos than, or even a larger size for your videos than the ones that the students will record. The frames per second, that's this one here. That's how many basically shots it takes per second. It doesn't seem to be actually 5 shots per second. I'm not quite sure how that works out, but a lower rate certainly gives you better quality but jerkier movement, and a higher rate gives you better quality or less jerky movement, but sometimes you get a bit of a lag. And this is the bytes per second, so that's the student's connection speed. And then we have the quality, which equates to compression, really. These two are kind of like a toggle thing. One of them should really be set to 0, and the other one's set to a number. So if you're gonna adjust the bandwidth setting, then set the webcam quality to 0, and then the Flash Player will automatically adjust the webcam quality to fit with the bandwidth settings, and vice versa. So if you're going to set the webcam quality, which is the level of compression, then you probably want to leave this at 0. And that's actually the recommended setting. That works much better, I feel, than the other way around. So if you set this to 0 and then play around with the webcam quality setting, and sometimes with the capture width and the capture height, you'll find a nice balance eventually. And then if you apply that as the defaults, then you should be okay. Okay, Don's just said, our webcams always record too dark, so I never use them. Any suggestions? That's not something you can change with the settings. I think that's probably more a feature of your driver for that webcam, or the webcam itself. So, funnily enough, I find often that cheap cameras are actually can actually do quite a good job, and the drivers are generic, so they work on any machine, because they just use these generic old cards. But yeah, you might have to play around with 2 or 3 cameras until you get one that goes with your setup. Unfortunately, there's no easy solution to the webcam thing. No, cheap cameras can be fine. I bought a whole bunch at I bought a whole bunch of 1,000 yen cameras, and they work fine. But I think you're best to buy 2 or 3 cameras and just check them out, and then get the one that actually is working well in your room with your system, and go with that. Yeah, sometimes even just opening the curtains can do it, and sometimes even dimming the lights can actually do it, because they detect the light and they adjust the brightness of the recording depending on the light that they can see. So, but how much control do you have of the light quality in a computer lab? So, yeah, no good answer for you there, Don. Sorry. Right, now we've got file handling. So this is another part of Moodle that's kind of a PoodLL that's new, and I found that I was having to do a lot of work on my audio players and some of the other widgets, which when I thought about it, I really didn't need to use, because there's actually plenty of good audio and video players out there. I don't actually have to make my own audio and video players. It's very nice because I get perfect control over them. But in actual fact, if I can use something like the Flow player or the JW player, that just lightens my workload, and they're really robust, and actually probably better than mine. I'm almost certainly better than mine. So I started to think about how I could start to use third-party players with PoodLL. And so here we have the multimedia plugins filter, and most of the time when you drop an FLV file into your activity, you'll be using the multimedia plugins file, plugins filter, which will then display that video file as a video player. But if we use the PoodLL filter player, the PoodLL filter to handle that same string, then we get some control over the player sizes, some control over the type of player. By that I mean is it the PoodLL player, or is it the Flow player, or is it the JW player? And also some control over other aspects of player behavior. There'll be more of that that control coming. So we're in the beginnings of that now, but there's more to see there. So here in the PoodLL filter settings page, you can choose to allow PoodLL to handle the FLV files, or the MP4 files, or the MP3 files. If you uncheck those and enable the multimedia plugins filter, that's fine. So you can go this way. You can go this way too. Okay. So the player types that are now available that you can choose from in the PoodLL filter settings, you can choose a PoodLL player, you can choose a JW player, or you can choose a flow player. And each of those gives you an audio or a video player. Now the problem with the PoodLL player is that it doesn't play MP3 out of the box. So we used to use the Red 5 server to play the MP3, but now we want everything to go locally within the Moodle system, within the Moodle loop. So we haven't got an MP3 solution, so this is a pretty bad option for the audio player. And another issue is the University of Texas was using PoodLL, and their blind school, they had problems with our players because they were not, their accessibility was not good. So the screen readers that they used, they couldn't pick up the play button or some of the other, like the volume button. They couldn't pick it up. So I had to do a lot of work to try and get that going. And I thought, oh heck, this is really going the wrong direction. I don't want to have to be doing all this. So this is when I started to think about using other players. And load deferral, well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but load deferral means if you have 30 audio players on a page, well, even a good browser can crash with that. So if you suddenly load up a page and it goes through and loads 30 PoodLL players or 30 FLV JW players, flow players, then that can crash a browser and it's really slow. And for you as a teacher, you might understand that because you're just doing grading. But if your students are trying to respond in an audio forum and there's a whole bunch of other responses, that can be a real drag. So we do have some limited load deferral within the PoodLL player. Yes, within the PoodLL filter you can choose one of these players. There's a setting there, and you can choose the player type. I suggest you use the flow player because that's one I've done the most work with, and I'll talk about that here. The JW player, that's a really good player. You can see it here. It's actually really popular. It's one of the ones you'll see all the time on the web. The problem here is basically the licensing. It uses a Creative Commons non-commercial license, which means that I don't think it's okay to bundle it, even with PoodLL really. But certainly, there'd be some people working in corporate environments, who really wouldn't have the authority to use that JW player. But it does play MP3, which is good. And accessibility-wise, I think it's also good. Load deferral, I'm sure it does it, but I haven't implemented it. So that doesn't solve the problem of 30 audio players on a page. And then we have the flow player. Now this is the one which Moodle is bundled as standard. And I think someone said MP3 player built into Moodle is not very good, tiny, triangle, fuzzy. Yeah, Don, that's great, and that's actually true. And that's actually the flow player. And even within the standard Moodle, you can actually configure the size of that player. A lot of people don't realize that. There's a config file that allows you to configure that size. Yeah, well, I've never done it. I've just read the docs, but I know you can do it. But with the PoodLL one, you can do that from within the menus. So within the PoodLL filter settings, there's actually an option there to choose the default audio player size, and then this here will expand or shrink according to the size that you set. And that's how we do it. So with PoodLL, we tried really hard not to require people to go and overwrite a core file or have to get into some PHP file and change a setting. So we tried really hard, and if we had to do that, well, we just said we weren't going to do that and we did something else. So that's made things like configuring this flow player a little bit easier for PoodLL users, I think. But the key thing here, Don just said, so to go into code to change the config files, to change the standard Moodle MP3 player, yeah, that's right. So if you want to change the size of the standard Moodle MP3 player, there is a config file, and you can go in there and you can change the size without installing anything, and that'll be across the board. That'll change that default MP3 player size across the board. Yeah. The key thing that we've done here with the flow player is we've implemented load deferral, and that's image-based load deferral. So what this means is that if you've got an audio or a video player, it'll replace that with a splash screen. Now at this stage, that splash screen is just a big black box with this, this cool, little triangle and a circle on top to show it's a player. But that gets around the problem of 30 audio players on a page. And we're actually gonna do on the tokyopoodle.com. We're actually going to generate a splash image automatically from each video file, so that when the video file is copied over into Moodle, the splash image is also copied over into Moodle, and you won't see a black box. You'll actually see, a screenshot of the first or one of the early frames of the video as your splash image. And then that'll be a pretty good solution, I think. Obviously for the audio file, that'll still be a black box because there's no image. Just for the video, we'll have that splash image. How are we going for time? Oh, heck. Flip it and go. Yeah, we're just about there. Okay. How many more slides have I got? Don says, how about lips for an audio? Yeah, right. We'll get some of those Clutch Cargo. I remember Clutch Cargo. Yeah, he had a little boat. Gosh, Don was showing our age. He had like a flying boat, didn't he? Hey, so anyway, let's just talk about this load deferral. This is I'll go a little bit quickly here because I just talked about this, so you probably know what I'm talking about. But here we have the show simple video splash and show simple audio splash. So that toggles, this the splash screen showing or not showing. When you click on this splash screen here, you'll get the video player. When you click on this splash screen here, you'll get the audio player. There's actually a wee bug there. I've just noticed yesterday, if you've got a whole bunch of them on the screen at a time, some of them, when you click them to stop the audio or the video playing, it actually starts it again. So I'll be onto that. So it'll be done this week, but there is a wee bug there. But in general, this is a good solution for those people who are recording into forums or databases or grading lists of audio files on the same page. This is the PoodLL repository here. So here you can see the different repos. We've got the video recorder, which uses Red 5, Tokyo Poodle. We've got the audio recorder, which uses Red 5. And we've got the snapshot recorder, which takes a picture from your webcam. And that's great for profile shots. It doesn't require Red 5. And then we have Paul Nichols' awesome audio recorder MP3. So when you install PoodLL, or when you go to the repository configurations page to add a PoodLL repository, you have these options here. So you add instances of these 4 repository types. There's just one PoodLL repository which has 4 instance types. And then we have the PoodLL recording question type. So here you can choose in the question bank, you can choose to make a PoodLL recording question over here. And then when you make that recording question, you can choose an audio or a video response to make an audio or video question. And when you show the question, you'll get a recorder depending on which one. You'll have to choose only one. No, sorry, let me jump back here. Sorry, no, the PoodLL repository. I hesitate to drop back down into my screen share because perhaps I could do that. Let me just go into screen share and show you what I mean about selecting a repository type. Okay, so here we have our demo course, and we'll get a site administration over on the left-hand side. Here we have the plugins. Here we have the repositories, and here we have the PoodLL repository. So we've already added if you look at the manage repositories here, you can see we've added a PoodLL repository. So that's where we add the repository to the system. Now, once we've done that, we need to create an instance of that repository which students will see. And over here you can see we've got 4 site-wide, on the right-hand side you can see 4 site-wide common instances. And those I've got 4 PoodLL repositories already running. So let's go and have a look here. This is how we add an instance. We go to the PoodLL thing here. And you can see here we've got an audio recording, an MP3 recorder, and a PoodLL snapshot recorder, and a PoodLL video recording. Okay, so create a repository instance here, And this is that what you just saw in the screenshot here, a video recorder, a snapshot, or a webcam. Okay. Adobe Connect. Now I have to jump forward, I guess. Probably a way of doing this, but let's just, oops. Ooh. All right, so here we've got a recording question type. So it's the same deal. You make a recording question, you choose audio or video response, and that's very simple. It's just an audio recorder in the body of the question, and the students just record. And it goes through. And the online assignment, well, it's very simple. I mean, under the hood, obviously, it's not simple, but it's the same thing. It just records voice or video. And at this stage, when you give feedback to the student, you just here you don't choose the player type, Don. You choose the recorder type, which is audio or video recorder. The player type is set in the PoodLL filter settings, and that's a default across the system. So if you choose the flow player, that would be the PoodLL flow. It would be the flow player right across the board. So that would display for questions, videos you edited in the repository, or assignment types. When you give feedback to your students, at this stage it's just text only. We did have a voice or a video option previously, but we haven't added that yet. And now that there's been some changes to the whole assignment system, I waited until that had gone through before I start doing any major changes to the assignment. But you can still do it by using the file chooser on the HTML editor and going to the repository and using one of the recorders there to add some feedback. Okay, so it's just a few more clicks. All right, we're just about there. Sorry about, I might just go a few minutes over time, but the final thing I want to talk about is the Adobe bug. So we have a big bug with Adobe's latest Flash players. This is the these versions here. You don't really need to worry too much about the versions. It's just probably the latest Flash player has a bug, and audio-only recordings won't play back. So that's a real drag, and it causes a lot of problems for people like me or us PoodLL people. If you're recording to MP3, then you're good to go because MP3 is not affected by this. And if you're recording video, you're good to go too. It's just the audio-only recordings. The solutions are, well, if you use tokyopoodle.com and you use port 1935, I've compiled a special Red 5, which is the latest Red 5 from source, and that actually has they've actually configured their FLV file container better. And actually works around this bug. So that's a good solution for port 1935 if you are using tokyo.poodle.com. You can auto convert to MP3. That means that your audio file, it won't play back while you're in the recorder. So if you try and check your recording from within the recorder, it won't play back. But once it's converted to MP3 and added to your HTML area, then it will play back. Okay. You could upgrade to Flash Player 11.3, but it's beta. All right, so you could do that, but it is beta, and you could downgrade to older versions of the Flash player. The best solution, obviously, I think, is to use port 1935 on tokyo.poodle.com. Okay. Yeah, I'm not actually solving Adobe bugs. I've just you have all these people suddenly can't use PoodLL and they don't know that's Adobe's problem. They think it's your problem, so you have to find a solution. But I know that Adobe's working on it. I can see they're working on it. Some of them, one of the Adobe staff say he's actually, I can see he's on my mailing list on my blog. So I guess he's coming along and just checking what we're doing. But yeah. All right, listen, I think we've gone over time there. So if you want to try PoodLL, you can go and try it here at demo.poodle.com. You don't need to install anything. You can just go straight away. If you do want to install it, great. Just download it from our website. And that's www.poodle.com. And if you need any help, just contact me on the blog there. I'm happy to help. And I guess I'll take a few questions now if there are any. Well, I guess, yeah, just, I know some people like to stay. Dom just asked, why, if there's no one else coming into this room, why stop? Well, I just don't want to keep anybody out of bed if they want to just being polite and stay until the end. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yep. If anybody wants, I could actually go through. Oh, we've got some questions. Okay. Yeah. Yep. Thanks very much. Yep. Give it a go. Give it a try, guys. Good. Thank you very much. I wonder if anyone wants to see me. If there's no questions, does anybody want to see me install PoodLL, or you're good with that? Video editing. Yeah. I suppose I thought about a little bit of video editing, but it's quite a difficult thing to implement, and that would take us quite away from where we are now. It'd be basically take all my time. So I think I won't. Right. Yeah, I can do that, Roger. Yeah. Um, the video assessment module. Well, I think the video assessment module. I mean, it's I mean, obviously you do the video recording in the video assessment module, and I think to do the recording, you use the use your own thing that you've developed. You have an in-house Red 5, don't you, Don? Oh no, are you not using Red 5 for your recording? No. Okay. Um, I think with something matching. Okay, good. So with your video assistant module, I think you've just adding like a lot of things onto the in terms of function, in terms of like a video recording. So with PoodLL, you just make the video the teacher decides what they want to make their assignment into, and they can use our recording assignment and then tell the students what to do from there, or they can add things to a forum. But I think with your video assessment module, you've got a very nice peer evaluation um, system, and it's kind of it's very specialized, and it does a lot of things that perhaps you might want to do with PoodLL, but PoodLL doesn't do it out of the box. You have to build a separate thing around that. Oh, that's right. Yeah, you don't do online recording. Sorry, Don. I'm kind of lost a thread there a little bit. Sorry, I just somebody said I give a link to a video of an installation. Well, there is one of those, so I'm just going to keep talking. I'll just pop out and get that link and come back. So just bear with me.